In this video, I want to talk a little bit about an issue that comes up that vegans are faced with on a regular basis. It's a question that's commonly posed to vegans by non-vegans. And the question goes like this. What's wrong with eggs? What's wrong with eating eggs? It doesn't hurt the chicken if you take the eggs away because the chicken isn't going to eat the eggs. The chicken doesn't need them. The eggs haven't been fertilized. What's wrong with eating chicken eggs? Okay, so I'm going to answer this in a way that a lot of people wouldn't think to answer it. But first, I'm going to go over just the issue of the welfare of the chicken that laid the eggs. Okay? Is there anything wrong with taking eggs away from a chicken who has laid the eggs and then eating those eggs? Is there anything wrong with that? And my answer to that is that depends. Okay? In most cases, there is something wrong with it. And what's wrong with it is that egg production is very hard on a chicken's body. And these hens that lay eggs lose a lot of calcium and other important nutrients when they produce these eggs. Okay? One way for chickens to get back some of that lost calcium is to eat the eggs themselves. And a lot of chickens do this. They eat their own eggs. Okay? So, to take away an egg from a chicken before the chicken has had a chance to eat it is stealing from that chicken. Also, if the chicken doesn't realize that the egg isn't fertilized, it doesn't understand, and it thinks that this is, its baby in there, then it could be even more traumatic to take it away. And also, when chickens lay eggs, they want to lay a certain number of eggs. If you take some away, then they want to put more in there. So taking the eggs away often causes the chickens to want to produce more eggs, and it causes their bodies to work hard to produce more eggs. So it is hard on the hens to take their eggs away from them. It is wrong for them. But let's say that we've got a case. Okay, actually one more issue about that. If you're buying your chicken eggs at a market, okay, then you can be certain that the chickens who laid those eggs were tortured, abused, mistreated. Their quality of life was shit. Their quantity of their life was also, the length of their life was also reduced dramatically by the fact that they were enslaved for egg production. Okay? That's a fact. And don't take my word for it, look it up. Egg-laying hens do not live as long as hens would live in the wild normally. Okay? Also, the egg industry is awful because of what it does to male chicks. They're often ground up. They're often suffocated in plastic bags, thrown in the trash. These are little babies, just came into the world, and they're being killed for no good reason other than that they're not of any value to the egg farmers. It's so sad that that happens. So chickens suffer as a result of the egg industry. However, let's think about the rare case, and this probably only represents a small fraction of 1% of the total eggs. I mean, it's probably like 1 out of every 100 billion eggs was obtained this way. And that is, you've got a backyard chicken that the people who live in the house and take care of the chicken are very fond of. It's like a pet, or maybe even better than that because it's outdoors, so it's free. So it's not like a slave animal like most pets. But it's free, and yet it lives in the yard. Maybe it was a rescue chicken, maybe it had its wings cut so it can't fly very well. And for those of you who don't know this, yes, chickens fly. They don't fly great distances, they're not migratory birds. Or maybe they migrate small distances, but they don't fly, they don't soar like eagles, obviously, but they do fly. Anyway, okay, so The chicken lays an egg, and then the chicken rejects the egg. The chicken doesn't eat the egg, doesn't sit on the egg, doesn't pay any attention to the egg. What's wrong with taking that egg and eating it? Okay. Well, from the standpoint of harming the chicken that laid the egg, there's nothing wrong with taking that egg and eating it. In that scenario, and like I said, that is such a minuscule fraction of the total number of eggs consumed in the world that it's barely worth talking about, but I'm doing it to prove a point. I'm making a point here. So what is wrong with it though? It's not harming the chicken that laid the egg. But does that mean it's not unethical? Not necessarily. I would say that it's still unethical, and here's why. Eating that egg is bad for you. Eating that egg is bad for the person who eats the egg. Eggs are not good for humans to eat. They are not a good source of nutrition. Do eggs contain some nutrition? Sure. They contain some protein, some vitamins, some minerals perhaps, but they don't contain anything in particularly high quantity. If you're talking about protein, eggs are not even as rich in protein. If we're talking about protein per calorie, eggs are not as rich in protein as a lot of other animal products. And no animal products are as rich in protein as a lot of plant products, especially beans, some seeds, and then especially green leafy vegetables. And some other vegetables that aren't green and leafy also are really rich in protein. So, much higher in protein per calorie than any animal product. So, it is unethical to eat eggs because it's unethical to eat something that's bad for you. And the reason it's unethical, some of you are probably thinking, wait, it's my prerogative. If I don't want to eat something, if I want to eat something that's bad for me, what does that hurt anybody else? Well, the reason it hurts other people is because you didn't develop in a vacuum. You have people around you. First of all, well, before we get to that issue even, let me just say, you have a responsibility to yourself to treat your body as well as possible. You have a responsibility to yourself, a moral responsibility to do everything you can to keep yourself as healthy as possible. But you also have a duty to the people around you to do that. Your family, your friends, your neighbors, other members of your society, of your civilization that you live in. You have an obligation to them to eat right and take care of yourself. Because if you don't do that, if you eat a poor diet, and you don't take care of yourself properly, then you're more likely to get sick. And that leaves other people holding the bag for you. That means other people have to take care of you. That means that, let's say that you were a head of a household, and you were the primary income earner. Well, if you're sick, and you're out of work because of it, or you're dead, you're not providing for your family anymore, you know? So, are you going to really challenge me on this? You're going to say that it's not unethical to eat a poor diet? It is unethical. If you're sick and you need medical treatment, that means other people have to work to provide you with that medical care. That means more total labor needs to be expended by the society in which you live because of your poor choices. So eating eggs is unethical for a variety of reasons, not just because of the harm done to the chickens, which is a very real problem. But even in the case of a chicken that wasn't harmed, an egg that was just there, that the chicken wasn't doing anything with, it's still unethical to eat eggs because of the impact on society, because of the impact on your own health, because of the impact on your family by you eating a poor diet. Now, another issue that comes up with eggs, okay, and is something that is fairly ridiculous. It's actually completely ridiculous, but I'm going to address it because I've heard this argument from some highly intelligent people and some highly educated people, including some healthcare practitioners. Now, healthcare practitioners usually don't study nutrition, so they don't really know that much about it, but still, but I've heard from some people who are healthcare practitioners this argument that I'm going to give, and here it goes. Okay, it's something like this. I don't worry about eating eggs because even though eggs are probably not good for my health, it's possible that I could do everything right. I could exercise regularly, I could eat the best diet possible, I could be vegan and eat everything, a perfectly nutritious diet, and do everything that I'm supposed to do to keep myself healthy. But thanks to genetic factors and other environmental factors that are beyond my control, I could still die of a heart attack or a stroke. Therefore, I'm not going to worry about what I eat. Okay, what that argument is saying is basically, it's not possible to eliminate my risk of dying from heart attack or stroke. Therefore, I'm not going to do anything to try to minimize my risk. It's an insane argument, but people make it. And the reason people make this argument is because they have a very strong desire to convince themselves that eating eggs is good for them or not bad for them. They have a very strong desire to convince themselves that they don't need to change their behavior. They like eating eggs, so they want to believe that it's okay to eat eggs. So they come up with whatever ridiculous excuse they can think of. Okay? But let me use that same logic, that same argument, with a different topic, okay, different subject. Instead of talking about eggs and nutrition, let's talk about being careful while driving, okay? It's possible that I could follow every traffic rule and regulation. I could drive defensively. I could keep my eye on the road at all times and my hands at 10 and 2. It's possible that I could do everything right. I could be super careful in the way that I drive my car. And I could still die in a car crash because of circumstances that are beyond my control. Therefore, I'm not going to be careful. I'm not going to watch where I'm going. I'm not going to stop for stop signs or red lights. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to drive. If there's a lot of traffic on this side of the road, I'm just going to drive against the traffic on the other side of the road. No point in being careful, because I can't completely eliminate the risk of dying in a car crash. So I'm not going to do anything at all to minimize my risk. I'm not going to be careful. Same with crossing the street. I'm not going to look to see if any cars are coming. I'm just going to cross. Because even if I'm careful, I might die anyway. It's an absolutely insane argument. So to sum up, what's wrong with eggs? Many things are wrong with eggs. Eggs are bad for the chickens. They're bad for the environment. They waste a lot of water. It's not an efficient industry to feed and water chickens so that we can steal the eggs that the chickens produce. It takes a lot of water and a lot of food to produce a little bit of chicken eggs. But eggs are also bad for the people who eat them. Eggs are bad for human health. Unless you're starving and don't have any other food, you shouldn't eat eggs. They're very bad for you and bad for everybody involved.